WTF? OMG? What's up, America? I'm Afton Bogiano, and you know what? Since there's a virus going around with a really low mortality rate, let's give all the power to the bossy people all over the world who want to make rules and dictate. Great. But we've been fighting viruses and infections since the beginning of time. Intelligence agencies have been planning pandemic strategies for decades. What's new is we haven't had a crazy fear fact related press who seems to enjoy this chaotic covering the virus. And if you want a good look at a Wetmarket from episode 2 or a biosafety lab from episode 3 and 4, all of which are back open and running, by the way, then you might agree that it was only a matter of time. But everyone's acting like a virus is a new idea and this has never been thought of. Now heart attack surges are increasing. Better quickly go to handsonly.org for some CPR refreshers. People are scared to leave their houses, let alone reluctant to go to the hospital. People are scared to do anything. I mean, I was too. Then I learned a lot more. Look, in order to mitigate the virus, we all know social distancing, 6 feet. But when you work out and your body works harder, the little dangerous water molecules can spread much further. So when you're jogging, it's like 16 feet. Working out sounds really dangerous. Good thing they closed all those gyms, parks, and beaches. What do people need most during a pandemic? Their health, perhaps? Last year in New York, in the span of a month, mid-March to mid-April, there were 450 New Yorkers who died of heart disease. This year, 2,200 in the same span. So how is regulating outdoor spaces helpful? I've seen pictures and hearing reports from New York that people are dying to go outside, and the few parks that are open are packed with people working out. People aren't wearing masks. It's a pain to work out in. Miami closed their parks, forcing everyone to work out on the sidewalks. Tight little space, all on top of each other. And here in California, my friend's friend got arrested for being on the beach. There will be a lot more heart attacks just due to stress. Did those deaths not count because they aren't fear-based coronavirus related? Especially a virus, we don't know the death rate, but it seems pretty low. See episode 6, which leads me to theory number 6. Coronavirus is another flu. Let's look at the numbers. Let's go back to the numbers and the data. The scientists will get us through this. I mean, after all, the same people who first told us even with social distancing and staying at home, over 2 million Americans could die are now saying less than 100,000 could die. But still, we can trust science, right? So let's take the CDC flu statistics of 0.1% death rate. Well, according to them, flu deaths are largely underreported. And I'm reading this off of their website. CDC does not know exactly how many people die from seasonal flu each year. There are several reasons for this. First, states are not required to report individual flu illnesses or deaths among anyone older than 18. Second, influenza is infrequently listed on death certificates of people who die from flu-related complications. And third, many flu-related deaths occur a few weeks after a person's initial infection. And also, most people who die from these flu-related complications are not tested for the flu at all, or they seek medical care later in their illness when the flu can no longer be detected from respiratory samples. Sensitive flu tests are only likely to detect the flu if performed within a week after the illness. In addition, Some commonly used tests can provide false negative results and misdiagnose the flu as not being the flu. And for these reasons, many flu-related deaths may not be recorded on the death certificates. Even in children, it may be unreported for all of these reasons that I just listed. Look, we don't mark it down when people die from the flu. Instead, we put down their underlying medical condition that the person had when they got the infection, like AIDS or diabetes or any underlying disease that weakens the immune system. So they estimate. They take the data from the participating FluServe.net sites, and this consists of only 13 states and about 9% of the population. And it's based on the amount of influenza testing and the type of test that's used at the site, and then they correct for the underestimate. What if there's a flu breakout in a county that's not a part of those 13 counties? It's completely inaccurate. Well, let's go back to COVID, which is much newer and must be much harder to trace. Let's take New York City. Reportedly 100,000 cases as of April 12th and 7,000 deaths approximately. What they don't want you to be very much aware of is that these 7,000 deaths, 220 of them were under 45 years old. And I just want to add in here that that's 3%. Now, what they don't want you to know is that of these 220 people who died, and that's of course horrible, all of them are horrible, only 28 people did not have underlying health conditions. And we know what these conditions are. 55% of the deaths had hypertension and 37% had diabetes, and the rest of them were other medical conditions. They're out there, you can research it. So I'm in a category that kills 28 of 7,000, but really 28 of 100,000 died in my demographic. That's roughly 0.00028% chance of death. So 1 in 5,000 of the people in my healthy and eager to work category will die. Well, ladies and gentlemen, as long as we protect our vulnerable, I am willing to take that chance. And as a human being of Earth, I should be allowed to do that. This is a lower death rate than the 0.1% flu. My demographic also has a 1 in 10,000 chance of dying in car accidents. We don't limit the time we're allowed to drive to keep the numbers down. WTF? I know we are using faulty stats, but while we act like those numbers are real, why aren't we talking about this? We know who the virus targets. We are being bullied and forced to stay in groups of less than 10 people. I have to wear a mask to go outside. I can't go see my family in New York and Florida. And now I'm told that I'm not allowed to go to my friends' houses. I'm not saying the virus isn't there, but I'm saying that we gave away our liberties willingly, and it's really scary how easy it is to manipulate the public. Also in New York, I bet that since COVID-19, more than 25 young, healthy people have since died of boredom and depression, stuck in these tiny apartments, jobless, with bossy roommates or boyfriends or wives or parents watching their every moves, with now nowhere to go and practically no hope, hearing projections that continue this charade for another 18 months. Plus, many of these older people who died may have gotten it from these stay-at-home orders, forcing healthy older people inside with their symptomless COVID-carrying families. But anyway, back to the foolproof data. 100,000 cases in New York. How do we know who has COVID-19? They take a test. How easy is it to get a test? Not easy. One thing is, Americans are being told if you have symptoms, stay at home, don't go out. So how do we have any idea of the number of people who have it? And then everyone's all upset that we aren't doing enough testing, when I'm thinking, how accurate are these tests? Remember how in early March, the FDA was getting beat up for how few tests there were. They still are, but they had to go and approve tests from the private sector. The CDC couldn't keep up. Now we have these emergency tests that were approved, which are required to trial on 30 positive samples and 30 negative samples. But these samples are made in a lab. These samples are not real. They are these perfect samples. What if the person with the test had an underlying condition? Wouldn't that change their sample? Next, according to the FDA, they must demonstrate that the test has at least a 95% sensitivity. The sensitivity tests how accurate a positive result is. Check out this pic. So here we have 1 in 51 are infected. Assume that the test is always positive in people with the disease, but falsely positive 10% of the time, which would be superior to many medical tests that are in use. As shown in the figure, the chance that someone with a positive test result is actually infected is under 20%, 1 in 6 people. Oh, and Elon Musk agrees, that's right. He tweeted it, up to 80% false positive. Then there's the specificity, which tests the accuracy of a negative result. There are reports of inaccuracies in this direction as well regarding the COVID-19 tests. Most of these tests are getting manufactured either by Roche or Abbott in the speed tests. According to Roche, clinical studies, which take months to run and would be a part of a regular non-emergency test approval process, are needed to give us an exact percentage of false negatives and false positives. Abbott also admits to needing more data to know the exact accuracy of the tests. OMG. It normally takes over a year to run trials of these tests for a new virus. Not these tests. These are emergency tests. They're not fully FDA approved. Testing has been focusing on people who actively have the virus. Then if you have it, it's positive. If not, it's negative. But you don't get the virus for life. Most people, you have symptoms, then it's gone, then you're negative. But maybe you already had the virus and now are immune. After all, not everybody shows symptoms. Now they are talking about serological testing with the antibodies. It's the only true way we will know who has had the virus. And that is great. But if they use that to track us with papers or something that we need to show in order to go in and out of places, that's freaking apartheid. That's how it starts. It's a really old trick and it doesn't end well. Jay Bhattacharya is a professor of medicine at Stanford Medicine and a core faculty member at Stanford Health Policy. He, and I quote, said, "If it's true that the novel coronavirus would kill millions of people without shelter-in-place order, then the extraordinary measures are justified." But there's little evidence to support that premise. Alex Berenson, former reporter for the New York Times, posted an article that I found about Neil Ferguson, who was one of the original authors who warned of 500,000 deaths in England. He now reports projecting under 20,000, half of which would have died anyway, implying it is much less dangerous than we had previously thought. And the last point I'd like to make is that I know so many people with a bad flu that hit them in January. It was going around. 2 of my friends that were in San Francisco, 2 in Riverside County, 2 people in New York City, and 3 in Miami. And it's not like I did a survey on this. This is just in my immediate personal friends and family. All of them have one thing in common. They all think they already had coronavirus, and they're fine now. Bottom line, I'm an American. You cannot take my liberties away, period. You start taking my freedoms and my rights away, you make my family, my neighbors, my friends scared that they're going to die from a virus if we don't do what we're told. That's manipulation. And I have had the pleasure of being manipulated several times in my life, and I know how to spot it. Truth is, us here in America have been manipulated for years. That's how we got to this point. But this is too far. This is not fair to the entire middle class. We will be wiped out, you guys. We have to stop being afraid and hold on to our rights and freedoms at all costs. Because the numbers we do know to be true are the numbers from the hospitals, and they're largely, finally decreasing, and we should be hopeful about this. The whole purpose of a shutdown was to help our medical system not get overworked, and we've succeeded so far. That's the ultimate goal, not to save everybody from getting a virus with a similar death rate to the flu. Okay, I've talked enough today. Thank you for joining us here at WTF OMG, What's Up America? I'm Afton Bogiano, and let's be mindful for the time where we will need to call our governors and demand to give us back our freedom and let us go outside again.